Hi, I'm Rob Cosman. Welcome to my shop. I presume if you're watching this video you love wood, so let me show you some great stuff. First of all, here's what we got new. We just started offering match sets. Haven't even gone on the website yet. This is out of Gaboon ebony. You can have it in whatever saw you want. This one's on my crosscut. And then we make a matching marking gauge. So that's Gaboon ebony as well. And then we hollow out the knob and insert a piece of Gaboon ebony in there. Really nice. So I've got a customer, good customer, and he wants 4 saws and 2 marking gauges out of this Torrified Birdseye. And if you don't know what it is, it's Birdseye maple that they have put in an oven in the absence of oxygen, raised it to a temperature where it would normally consume the wood, but because there's no oxygen, it doesn't burn. It just gets this really nice brown honey color. Now I've run it through the thickness planer. I've got to take it down to a full 1 inch in order to get a handle out of it. And I'm going to show you something else. I used to, I'm a little slow on this, but this was my template that I use. I set that on there to draw out and then bounce out my handles. Well, I thought, make them out of plexiglass, then you can actually see right through. But before I go any further, I want to show you what this stuff, how it lights up when we get some finish on it. Now this is right out of the thickness planer, so there's no, it's not been smoothed out at all. And I've got some lacquer thinner that I mix 50-50 with, pardon me, lacquer with lacquer thinner. Reason is it just applies, it goes on faster. It's not a heavy buildup, but it'll keep it wet and give you that look that you get with the finish applied. And this stuff is really gorgeous. And it dries really fast, so it only takes a minute to put it on and then a couple of minutes to dry it, and then we can go ahead and put the plexiglass templates on. Now I want to be able to get 4 handles that look really similar, so this is going to use up the wood in a way that I wouldn't normally, meaning I usually try to get maximum yield out of it. So instead of staggering them to get the most, I'm going to actually place them so that I can get a nice continuous look. Now this piece actually has some bird's eyes that are cut, quartered. That's where you see this long ray. You'll see it better when I put the finish on. Now the challenge with doing this is that the handle is not very big, so you've got to have some really wild grain that's close together in order to get enough figure to show well on the small surface area of a handle. Really enjoy working with this stuff. Love regular bird's eye, but this stuff just takes it up a notch. It reminds me, if you've ever seen some of the woods that they pull out of river bottoms that have logs that have been sitting down there for 150 years, they get this honey patina, and this is as close to it as I've seen. Now this one is really polluted. I use that word to describe a lot of bird's eyes in one spot. Okay, give me a minute to finish applying this, wait for it to dry, and then we'll go through the process of laying it out and show you what we can come up with. Okay, I need to give a shout out to my wood pusher. His name is Arnold London, friend, fellow craftsman, in Moncton, New Brunswick, has a business called London Lumber. And Arnold started out just dealing in bird's eye maple several years ago. It's getting harder and harder to get the raw material. But he sources this stuff for me, and I'm in his debt. Now, if you don't know anything about bird's eye maple, you're going to find this interesting. If you do, then you already know it. So here's a piece, and here's the outside of the tree. And this is how the bird's eyes come right through. In fact, they telegraph right through to the bark. But that's a really good example of what it looks like. If you were walking through the forest and the bark was off, this is how you would see it. I'm actually going to build a box, and I'm going to use that as the lid. And then when you open up, it'll be polished on the underside. Now, all of this stuff has a fair number of checks in it. And some of them are small, so I've got to work around that. But small price to pay to get some fantastic handles. Now, the part of this handle that has the most stress is right through here. So this area has to always run parallel to the grain. And that's why having these clear plexiglass templates is going to make this a lot easier. So what I'm looking for, I want to be able to get, as I said, 4 handles that almost look identical, which would mean if I was going to do it here, you'd go 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row. But when you're sitting there looking at something like this, it's hard to decide which part you want because it looks so good. Now I really like this piece. In fact, right down there, and that's got some a combination of bird's eyes that are cut perpendicular to the way they come out. They radiate out from the center of the tree. So when you cut them parallel to the way they are coming from the center of the tree, you get this look. Better served over here, and then this would be more perpendicular to it. So if I look at this piece, if I could get 4 of them, the idea is, where do you want decisions? See, I want the majority of what you're going to see is right in through this part. This is flat, and this is flat, but then this part and this part are rounded over, as you see in the handle. You've got a little bit of flat area right through here, but not a lot. And actually, you know what? You have as much here as you do there. So, what to do? You have to be careful of that crack. Take one there. All right, I'm going to fuss around with this, and then once I decide exactly where I'm going to get them, we'll turn the camera back on, trace one out, go downstairs and cut it in the bandsaw, and take you as far as I can. Okay, here's what I was able to do. Really wanted to use that piece, but there's really bad cracks on the other side that go right through this part, and you just can't have that. So what I did over here, you see this streak of sapwood that's running here. Sapwood is the part of the tree that continues to be alive when it's growing, and then you've got this. This is the heartwood. So that sapwood band runs right through there. So if you can imagine, on every handle, you'll have it approximately the same spot, and I think that'll really look pretty. And of course, the dovetail saw that looks pretty will cut better, right? All right, now I'm going to take this downstairs to my 15-inch bandsaw, and we'll go through cutting out one of them. We'll see you down there. To make this a little more manageable, I'm going to use my big bandsaw, and I'm going to follow this crack right up to here, and then I'll take that section. Now I use my smaller bandsaw because I've got a small 1/4-inch blade in there, and I can get around these tight turns. So I've got to cut from there to there, and the easiest way to do that is with my handsaw. So let's just draw a line in there. Now, just in case I need a little bit, and I hate wasting any of this, but I'm going to give myself just a bit. The danger is that crack is running this way and it goes into the handles. Hopefully not. Well, what am I going to do with that? Let's go back over the bench. Okay, the bottom part of the handle is flat, so I can't afford anything that's going to slope away down here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have to plane this off and start over, but I'm going to run this over the jointer and make sure that I've got a good clean edge on that bottom. Now, I can't afford to send this through the thickness planer because I'm already down to 1 inch and I don't want to be any less than that. So what I'll do is hand plane it. I'll have to take those marks off so we can start over. That's going to hold on that angle or not. Okay, now I'm going to go slap some more finish on that. We'll start right back from where we were, but realizing that we've got to stay away from that bad crack. I can't really tell on this end, although it looks, actually, you know what, here's an easy way to tell, and that is to shoot the end of it so that you can see better. Problem with dealing with really nicely figured wood like this is a lot of time it's distressed. So you deal with these surface checks and end cracks, all the rest of it, but payoff is great. That's a broken piece right at the end that keeps catching when I bring the plane back. Okay, well if that's the last of it, I'll be alright. Okay, throw a little bit of finish on that and we'll start over. Okay, looks a little different with the finish on the plane surface. So what I'm going to do is start over, but I'm going to go from this end. I think the problem gets worse as I get down toward here, and I've got to stay close to the bottom. Still got to stay close to being parallel to the grain. I can fudge that just a little bit, just because maple is such a tough wood. But I also want to capture as many of those bird's eyes as possible. So if we sit that right down there, thinking. You know, I'm almost thinking what I should do is go down and actually cut one out just to make sure that this is going to work.
It's not working.
Alright, now go right along there and see what I can get. I'll see you downstairs at the bandstand. I try to get this as close to that line as possible because we have to sand to the line, so the closer I get, the less work I have to do. soon as I open this up, I'll be able to see whether or not I'm going to be able to get another handle out of it. So there's where the check more or less ends, so we've got to stay away from it about 1/4 inch down from the top. Take that one back up and I'll finish this. I'm going to go around this top line real quick just to make sure that everything is good up there. In case you're wondering, this is a General Canadian 15-inch bandsaw. Really like it. They're no longer in production. And I'm lucky enough to actually have 3 of them. Grain line. So there's no cracks visible up there. That's great. I'll be able to use this piece. This is about as tight a radius as you can get with this blade. Doing a bunch of these, I get a lot quicker. Practice makes perfect. Now I actually sand these outside curves on the disc sander, so I can do those fairly quickly, but all of these inside curves have to be done on the spindle sander, which takes a lot more time, so those are the ones that I really try to get as precise as possible from the bandsaw. Be able to get this in one cut. Now this back profile has to be done on a spindle sander, and sometimes it's difficult to get a long, shallow curve just right when you're using a much tighter radius on the spindle sander. So the closer you can get that from the bandsaw, the better chance you have of getting it right. I always run my fingers down like that to make sure that it's continuous flow. Okay, so from there we'll go upstairs and sand some of these parts. And before I do that, I'm going to go make sure I can get the other 3 handles out of that piece of wood. Okay, this next one, I can't stay far enough away from there. I can't go down like that, then I'm too far away from being parallel through that narrow neck. So what I'm going to do with this, that's not an area of high stress up in here. So I'm going to run some thin cyanacrylate down into that crack. I'm going to use some medium as well, and we'll see if we can't stiffen that up. I'm just if I can get the glue down in there, then that'll stay together and there won't be a problem at all. If not, I'm going to lose what I'm looking for. Now this stuff will only work on the bits of wood that are actually touching. I'm going to put some medium down in there. It's not, I don't know if it's going to penetrate at all, but it might. Now this will fill the gaps a little bit. And instead of using an accelerator to set it up, I'm just going to let it set up on its own. In the meantime, I'll get set up and I'll just walk you through how we do that. Just hit the highlights. We'll see with the sander. This is the first time I've used this. I bought this used. Like the older equipment, it's so much better made. Now, this will allow me to get right around the inside, but I'll just kind of start over here where I can see the line. So much easier to do an outside curve with a belt was really aggressive. I always use my fingers. I trust it more than my eye. Right, now we can do these ones as well. That'll just make the transition of going into that curve a lot easier. Down here. Okay. If you're wondering why I got this piece of MDF on here, the table insert does not sit perfectly flush. There's no adjustment on it. So you end up having your workpiece tip in toward the spindle. No good. Your work for here is a nice transition. I just want that to be, I don't want to feel any radical changes in the shape. This has to flow, is the word. I find it easier to go away than to come toward me. Here. Always nice to match the actual radius with the spindle, but that's not always possible. The closer you can get, the more contact you have between the spindle and the wood for the profile you're working on, so it's much easier to get it right. Now I'll get this inside tight curve first. and then I'll flip it over. Now I'll take this right up to 400 grit, but for right now I just need to get the shape. If I flip it over, I find it a lot easier to have this going away than to turn around and try to do it in this way. It may just be the size of the handle, I don't know. But go with what works best. Okay, that's a good transition. Good meaning I can't feel it. Now, this one. This part right here is the toughest. Actually, what I sometimes do, because this is going to be completely changed, this is going to be radiused and this surface, what I'll do is I'll go in while it's still in the rough like that and actually do the half round on the with the router bit on the bottom half. That means that when it comes up time to doing this, I'm only having to work half the thickness instead of the entire thickness. Just don't have the router set up yet, that's why I didn't do it. Get that bottom section. Once that's good, and that's good, then we'll just work on the transition in between. This is where you just use a couple of fingers and you can feel, so much easier to feel where the irregularity is instead of trying to see it. These inside finger radiuses are easy because that's the actual profile, or the radius of the spindle. So just get that one smooth. I like to keep this crest nice and sharp. And then work on this big one. Again, I prefer to have that turned around for some reason. Alright, I will finish this one off and then we'll take you over to the router table. I use these Freud quad something cutters, and I don't know the whole technology behind them, but you'll notice that the main cutter is sloped forward, and then this secondary cutter is sloped backwards. Whatever it does, it produces a nice fine cut, so that's what I use. Now I already did the bottom side, and if you have a real keen eye, you'll notice this is a different handle. The first one I did, I forgot that when you buy these, they come with with a smaller size bearing, which leaves a stepped profile, which ruined that handle. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to get my 4 handles now or not. This one has a crack right through there, but the cyanoacrylate went in and sealed it, and I think it may be alright. We may be able to salvage it. When I do this, and I do not enjoy this part of the process, but I start with the bit down low. I keep the speed fairly low. I have a variable speed router. And then just be careful. Do it in several stages. It also makes it so that if you're having to cut against the grain, it's not as likely to tear it out. As I mentioned, I already did the bottom side. Now I'll bring that up. I'll probably do it in 3 stages. Some of these woods have a real tendency to burn, so you've got to go fast enough to prevent the burning. Which means if you save the final cut for a very, very light one, you can usually get rid of those burns. Alright, that's the final height. I'd like to have that flat spot a little bit narrower. However, the problem you run into is if you bring the bit up too high, then the bearing is going to start referencing off of the sloped area, and then you'll end up having the top part of your cutter digging in right here. I might be able to come up just a little bit more. I'm going to check that to make sure it's not leaving a ridge. No, it doesn't. That I draw on the table, the rotation keeps me from forgetting. That'll be a lot easier to round over. Now, the rest of that will be done very much like the composite handles are, and if you haven't seen the video we produced on making our dovetail saw, it's just a repeat of that, except for the fact that I've now got to go through and sand all of this, take it right up to 400 grit, and then put an oil finish on it, and mount it, and it comes out great. Hopefully we'll be able to get the other 3 out of that other one, and we'll post some pictures on our website when we do. Hope you enjoyed this.